Hey folks, thanks for checking into the Neutral Zone Hotel. We are an unapologetically left-leaning podcast that explores hockey at its best and worst. I'm Benjamin, my pronouns are he, him. I'm a Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Charge fan, and I'm thrilled you've joined us today with Neutral Zone Hotel. Here to ensure your stay is an excellent one is one of my colleagues, my good buddy SJ.
Hello, I'm SJ. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a Yanni Newman fan.
That is true. Yanni Newman, 2 goals so far in his young NHL career. Congratulations.
2 goals, 3 games. Feeling pretty good about it. Let's ignore the fact that he's getting basically optimal usage for him to do that. And they're totally sheltering him. It's okay. He's still a baby. That's what this part of the season is for.
I'm pretty sure this is completely sustainable.
100%. He's going to be a 40 goal scorer on the power play next year.
So SJ, ask me what I did today.
Benjamin, did you get a car wash today?
I did, but that's not what I was setting you up for, so try again.
Okay, Benjamin, what did you do today?
Oh, I started planning my annual trip to Sweden, which, as you know, is the home of many famous hockey players like Roman Josi, Marco Rossi, and if they need a goaltender bad enough, Joey Decord.
Are we just making fun of the Athletic then?
I'm thoroughly making fun of the Athletic.
Look, I am always here for making fun of the fact that the Athletic and the New York Times at large does not copy edit their articles.
So for those who may have missed it, the Athletic wrote an article today on the NHL announcing their European series for next year, which will feature Pittsburgh and Nashville playing a couple games in Avicii Arena in Stockholm. And as always, they like to refer to the hometown players. And they got the ones on the Penguins right. And then very promptly noted that Team Switzerland captain Roman Josi is from Sweden. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I thought it was great that they not only used his name, but also his picture. To like really, really drive in the knife on that. Yes. Our beautiful Swiss boy, Roman Josi, did not deserve that.
He is beautiful, isn't he? Just what a good looking guy.
Very, very much so.
But yeah, no, so if they need a goaltender, they can get Joey Decord a passport. Do you want to explain why I joked about that?
Sure. So Joey Decord, I believe his mother is from Switzerland. He doesn't have a Swiss passport at this time, but I did hear that Team Switzerland did inquire with him whether he would be willing to play in the Olympics for them, and no word on whether that would be the case. I understand that so Decord is American. He was born and raised in America, although his father is Canadian, his mother is Swiss. And like, I know he ideally would like to play for Team USA, but it's very unlikely that he would be offered that, which is fine. Team USA has a glut of really good goaltenders. I personally would love to see him play for Team Switzerland. I think that would be great for the Swiss program. They would definitely do better in the tournament because he is certainly the best of their goalie options. But who knows if he'll be willing to do that? Who knows?
Yeah, not so long ago, Switzerland had quite a few decent NHL goaltenders, but that time has passed. So
yeah, I don't think
they could use Joey.
I don't think they have any currently in the NHL.
No, not currently in the NHL.
Yep. Big goaltending countries in Europe: Sweden, Finland. Finland seems to have a lot of good goalies. Russia. Yep, Russia, and Canada and the U.S. But No, not a lot. Not a lot coming out of like Slovakia or Czechia or Switzerland or yeah, I can't even think.
I mean, Czechia has had a couple very, very famous goaltenders in years past, most notably Dominik Hasek, but of course, he's a little retired nowadays.
Bring him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
He'd probably still be better than Vitek Vanacek, right?
Is Vanacek Czech?
Pretty sure he is.
He might be. I am not sure.
I mean, it says Czech right in his name.
Yeah. I was
Vanacek.
at the last.
Yeah, he's from the Czech Republic.
Oh, okay. The last Silver Tips game I went to, the Portland Winterhawks goalie was Czech, and I was like, I looked at his nameplate and I was like, wow, that's a lot of diacritics. He must be Czech. And I was right.
There you go.
He was quite good. He was quite good. I was impressed with him in that game. Who knows? In 6 or 7 years, he might be the next great Czech hope in the NHL. It could happen.
I mean, Jakub Dobeš is currently putting on a nice clinic for the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, there you go.
So there you are. And Dobeš is from Ostrava in the Czech Republic. So there you go.
Rock on.
Couple Czech goalies coming up.
Excellent.
All right. Well, speaking of international, I think the first thing I want to jump into is a press release today after a call between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin. We're stretching president a little bit, but I don't want to use the other term, the more German term yet.
Ooh.
But in this press release, both men announced that so it says here, quote, Donald Trump supported Vladimir Putin's idea to organize hockey matches in the USA and Russia between Russia and American players playing in the NHL and KHL. So as everyone following the news knows, Russia and Belarus are currently banned from international competition as a consequence of Russia's illegal 2022 invasion of Ukraine. And if you're really interested in hearing more about that, you can go back to our very second episode where we did a very deep dive into the ramifications of Russia's invasion on hockey, both in the Ukraine and globally. But in this situation, I find this very interesting because obviously NHL players are under NHL contract, and Gary Bettman is notoriously fickle about allowing his players to participate in tournaments outside of the NHL's purview.
Well, it's also notable that the IOC has not come out and said that Russia won't be in the next Olympics. That's still an open question. While they're banned from IIHF organized competitions, the IOC can do whatever they want. Now, typically, they don't stray too far from what the international governing bodies want, but this is a weird case. And anything could happen.
Well, so first of all, the IOC is picking a new president this week. And that might be picked by the time this comes out.
Okay. Good to know.
I think it will be an interesting, one of the bigger pieces on the IOC's new president's plate will be, are you going to allow Russia and to a lesser extent Belarus to participate in the 2026 Olympics? And I'm very curious what they're going to choose. So obviously the political headwinds are going to favor Putin with Trump's return to power and his open friendliness to the Russian strongman. But the IOC has shown a willingness to go against right-wing sort of propaganda pieces, including with their break from the World Boxing group, which I did not look up because I'm talking off the edge of my brain here. But boxing's primary global organizer for Olympic level amateur boxing was discredited after it became fairly taken over by Russian interests and began pushing right-wing anti-transgender talking points around certain boxers. Including generally, and what's her name? The Algerian boxer.
Emin
Khalef.
Oh, okay.
Amane, maybe. Sorry, I apologize. Please correct me by joining our Discord, neutralzonehotel.com/Discord, and let me know that I pronounced somebody's name wrong. But that being said, Colette first became accused of masquerading her gender, which she's not. She's a cisgender woman who may have differences in sex development, but that is a category of sport. And we haven't done a deep dive into the attack on transgender women in sport yet.
Or on DSD women.
Or on DSD women, because they are linked. They are one and the same.
Well, no, the issue is kind of one and the same, but they are not. That's what I was trying to say. The attack on one is an attack on the other. Yeah.
But they are two different categories
Very much.
Of women. But
this is a complicated issue. I think I'm a little afraid of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid of it. I'm a little more afraid of it than you are. I'm the white cis guy here, so.
There is a really great, actually, this is a good time to shout out. There's a really great podcast called Tested that NPR did with, I think, also in conjunction with the CBC.
CBC,
yeah. It's like 6 episodes, and it covers this topic in depth, especially around what World Athletics, the run track and field organization, has done. And if you want somebody to speak on these words that does not sound like an idiot, I highly recommend that podcast called Tested.
Yep. But what I was going to point out is that the Boxing Association explicitly began pursuing the campaign of supposed transgender, like hiding up her gender, after she defeated Russian boxers.
Shocking. And
the IOC did react negatively to that, to the point where they now have split with that boxing federation. So it's possible that we could see a split. We've seen it before on politically motivated issues, but previously it was against Russia. And the real question here is, now that Donald Trump is president and is openly supporting Russia in many areas of geopolitics, is this another one? However, the idea of an NHL or a Russian-American super series, for lack of a better term, does seem to be a way of allowing Putin a diplomatic out if his team is banned from participation at the 2026 Olympics. So it would be a way for him to deliver a propaganda victory to his side and say, oh, we're going to get to play a super series with the Americans. That's good enough.
The Americans would be foolish to do it before the Olympics, especially if they did it with NHL players who might get injured in that series. Also, I'm honestly not sure it'd be wise for the NHL to even allow it.
Well, and again, Gary Bettman has not shown any inclination to allowing NHL players to participate in tournaments sanctioned by the IIHF or the IOC. They allow players to go to the World Championships every year, but the take rate is pretty low.
Yeah.
And it's not usually stars.
And I mean, it happens during the playoffs, so that takes a lot of people out right there. They don't.
And at the end of a long season.
Yeah. The take rate was higher last year because at least Team USA and Team Canada told players who were not going to be participating in the playoffs that their application to the Four Nations and Olympics would be looked more favorably upon if they did play in the World Championships. So I know that's what got folks like Brady Tkachuk into the tournament. And he was great in it, and it probably did help him get into the Four Nations. So it's not like it's a total ban, but certainly I don't think that Bettman would countenance doing anything during the season. He's not going to suspend the season for that. And then you're looking at trying to convince the players to do something during the summer. I can't imagine that Marty Walsh particularly cares for the idea, even if at the end of the day he'll do what the players want. And the players are all a bunch of fucking cavemen, so they might be down for it, but it's still, they'd have to do it during the summer. That's tough.
Or in September, just before the season.
Yeah, but not during training camp.
I also think the NHL's traditionally antagonistic relationship with the KHL will come into play here. These are not leagues that have ever been friendly to each other.
Yeah.
And as a result, I don't think Gary is likely to want to see American NHL players, because that's what it would be, facing off against a 50-50 team.
Yeah. They haven't, they mentioned in that one article that Greg Wyshynski did that when Russia invaded Ukraine, Bettman had all of the relationships with the KHL severed formally. They're not going to countenance like an exhibition game with a KHL team. I just don't think that would happen. There are certainly enough Russian players in the NHL to field the team, and those are the best Russian players. That would leave the KHL kind of out of it.
I imagine they would take... A lot of times Russia sends a few KHL players even when the NHL's been available. And there are good Russian players who stay at home.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I agree with you that most likely the top stars, all the name brand players would definitely be Russian or from the NHL.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, we don't know Gary Bettman's personal politics. I think we can presume he's a Republican.
I think we can presume he's very going to do what he thinks is politically savvy
for the time. Yeah. I don't particularly think he's on the Donald Trump MAGA train, but he's certainly going to do what's best. He thinks is best for business, and the owners are going to pressure him to do what's best for business, which, given the tensions between Canada and the United States, certainly puts him in a challenging situation with 25 to 30% of league revenues coming from 7 teams in Canada, 6 teams. I mean, like Winnipeg's probably not doing too much there, but ultimately he's got an interesting line to walk as he moves towards retirement. Mr. Bettman does.
Yeah. I just don't see if they do move forward with this idea, I don't see anything happening before the 2026 Olympics.
No.
So this is
absolutely
is like, at this point, it just feels kind of like a pipe dream for these two people, using the term people very loosely there.
They're legally humans.
Yes.
But yeah, no, this is a propaganda concept right now.
Yep.
Donald Trump was very much on the go USA, go America hockey train until America lost, at which point he never said a word about hockey until now.
Yeah, shocking.
So it's very, very evident that he only views the sport, and probably all sports, as opportunity for propaganda. And knowing Trump, he would probably demand that all of these games occur only in cities with Trump hotels where all the teams have to stay. And he can get, a bunch of money kicked back to his own private business. So
whatever happened to emoluments?
Well, if you just ignore the law and the people who enforce the law work for you, then it's like you're a king, basically. So,
isn't that the truth? I'm depressed. Let's talk about something else.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about PWHL Takeover Detroit?
Sure. New U.S. record for attendance.
I think it barely beat the Denver game.
Yeah, I didn't look at the actual numbers. I didn't compare, but hey, cool. Yeah, Detroit is clearly pretty hungry for some hockey. They did a PWHL game last season in Detroit as well. So the fact that they've gone to Little Caesars Arena twice kind of indicates to me that they're really seriously looking at Detroit as an expansion market. It's certainly located correctly, but we do have to come back to the fact that there may not be an appropriate rink situation.
Yeah. So the Detroit is a very good hockey city. It's obviously been an incredible hockey city for a very long time. Through like the late 90s and early 2000s were very challenging economically, but the Red Wings remained very popular. They have a very nice new arena. They have solid ownership, even if the Illiches are not necessarily beloved in Detroit, but their ownership is solid.
Mm-hmm.
And like
gotta get that
the
pizza
Detroit
money.
suburbs, you gotta get that pizza money. The Detroit suburbs are the home of the United States National Development Team program, which says something. And that is an arena that hosts, what was it, 3,500, 4,000, something like that?
Yeah, it was like 3,500 for hockey in USA Hockey Arena, which is apparently what it's called. Because USA Hockey just straight up bought the building, I guess.
And I mean, that might be good enough.
For a long term, I'm not sure. Maybe for a start. The PWHL was willing to play in a 2,000 seat arena in Toronto. If they really like that market, they can look at maybe starting the team in that 3,500 seat arena in the suburbs. And that might be the right size at the beginning. I do kind of come back to the fact that in some of these markets, there's going to have to come a point where Mark Walter has to decide to build some infrastructure. Like, he's going to need to decide to build an arena at some point. And I think that's inevitable.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. The sweet spot for an arena in the United States in a hockey town seems to be somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're getting 8,000 pretty regularly in Minnesota. And I think it's fair to say Minnesota is the hockey craziest place in the United States.
Could be.
14,000 twice for a game in Detroit is really nice. And it indicates that there's a lot of fans there, but I don't think those are going to become regular fans.
Yeah, they're probably not going to draw 14,000 people on a random Tuesday in, March, once a week. That'd be tough. That'd be a tough sell.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
At least in the beginning, until they really build up a following, I think. I do believe that the demand for women's sports is there, and it will continue to grow. So drawing those kinds of crowds consistently is certainly possible for this league in the next 10 years. We're just not quite there yet. I can see you looking something up.
I'm just looking at other options for arenas in Detroit proper, but there just aren't that many.
Yeah, not the right size. That's tough. And playing in Little Caesars would be really tough for them as well with the basketball team there and their concert schedule. There's just a lot of conflict for the venue. And I mean, Minnesota is making it work at Excel, but I don't necessarily think that an NHL-sized arena is really the best option for PWHL teams to play in regularly at this point.
I completely agree with you, and I firmly believe that they will need to find another option.
Yeah.
They can't. I don't think Windsor is a viable option. They have a 6,000, 6,500 person arena, but between border challenges and just the optics of saying you're a Detroit team but playing in Windsor,
it doesn't work. I mean, I can see them trying it, but especially with the hardening of the border that has been happening in this administration, I can't imagine it's particularly practical for fans to take day trips.
Yep. So when you put all that together, the number one location that I think is viable for them is USA Hockey Arena, which seats 3,500 and will allow up to 1,000 standing, according to this press release I just found. And then maybe host a couple games at Little Caesars.
Mm-hmm.
every year to try to draw in bigger crowds.
And then they just need to build their 10,000 seat arena. You know, the WHA had to build their own arenas. PWHL could do it.
We're not talking about the WHA this week.
That's right.
You said you are not ready to talk about that.
I'm not. I haven't really digested the book yet.
So yeah, I think Detroit remains very attractive just because it will fill whatever building they find, at least to an extent, and they'll get it. If they do end up going to Little Caesars, they'll probably get 6,000 a game, much better than what they're seeing in New York right now.
Oh, so what you're saying is they should move the Sirens to Detroit.
I mean, I think the Sirens, they are going to be looking at solutions in the off season.
Yeah, I think they should start with everybody who's running the team and solution them right out and put in all new management on both the business and hockey side and start with that. I think that would be a good start.
We can't write the book on hockey ops yet for the rest of the season, but it's not looking very good.
Oh.
But it is fair to say that they haven't made the inroads into the market that they thought they would. And getting 4,000 people on a weekend to the Prudential Center is just not acceptable when you consider the cost of that venue.
Yeah. It's not going to do it.
There's no way they're making the value. And if they had to go somewhere with a smaller venue that got filled up every night, I imagine they would find that to be a significantly better cost proposition.
Yeah.
Because originally they were thinking we could do this with 2,000 people in Toronto and 4,000 people in Montreal. Like that was, and they apparently did inquire about playing in Gatineau for Ottawa.
That's a nice arena.
So it is a nice arena, but
no
you can put
holders.
8,000 people. Look, SJ, what the hell do you want? Do you want me to call up the people doing the next version of TD Place Arena and ask them if there will be cup holders? I'll do it.
You should. No, genuinely, you should do it.
I'm going to. I'm going to write my counselor and be like, are there going to be cup holders in this damn arena?
I want you better get a reply, and I want you to read it on the show.
I'll try. I'll see if I can get a reply.
Okay. I'm dead serious.
Yeah, I know you're serious. I had to put up with this person complaining about cup holders at every goddamn motherfucking stop we had on the hockey tour.
I don't know what is wrong with Canada and their lack of cup holders. I guess I'm just spoiled. Every arena that I go to in Seattle has cup holders.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was I talking about?
I don't remember. Gatineau.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty clear they were willing to operate in smaller arenas, and let's be 100% clear. Although they have likely expanded on their spending a lot more than they thought they would, certainly having a team playing in an NHL arena but putting in half of Gatineau Olympique's capacity is going to be a drag on their bottom line.
Yep.
So if they have to move that team to somewhere that has a smaller arena, 2,000, 3,000, 3,500 that they can fill with diehard fans, then that's maybe what you have to do. Maybe you can't break into New York until you're bigger, like New York City proper until you're bigger.
Yeah.
And that would suck for the Sirens fans, but this is kind of what happens with new leagues.
Yeah.
You try to find the best place, the best value propositions for your game. And realistically, they are a hit in 5 out of 6 markets.
Yeah,
that's
not bad.
Not bad. And when you consider how much of a hit they are in Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, where they're selling, thousands and thousands of tickets, and in Minnesota, that's getting 8,000 a game.
Yep. That's pretty good.
That value is really high.
And I continue to think that Boston, if they can make a permanent move to Aganis which is actually in Boston, that would be a huge boon to their regular attendance numbers. They have not done terribly. I think they're doing a lot better in Lowell this year than they were last year, which is which gives me a lot of hope that they're gaining some momentum in that market. But again, I think they just need to be in the city.
Yeah, and maybe it's Aganis, maybe it's whatever replaces Matthews Arena. And if that's the case, it'll be a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's fine. Wouldn't be the end of the world.
But I don't believe that the cost to rent out Tsongas Center is anywhere close to what they're going to pay for an NHL arena. So I imagine they're probably in good shape.
Yep. Yeah. They're perfectly okay in Lowell right now.
So we're almost on the takeover tour. We just have St. Louis left, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
Where are you feeling? If you had to pick two cities, which two cities would you pick that they're going to offer the expansion teams to?
Like from the takeover tour cities, or just like any cities?
Any cities, factoring in the information we've received from the takeover tour.
I mean, I per our conversation on rinks, I do think Detroit is a great option for them. How many did they draw to Buffalo? Do you remember?
Only like 8,800. It was the lowest takeover game.
Yeah, that's disappointing. Buffalo's a great location. It's a great city. Great hockey fans. I wonder if they just didn't advertise it well enough. I feel like their attendance was kind of soft in Pittsburgh.
The attendance was soft last year. Yeah. I was there. I can tell you it was softer than I was hoping.
Yeah. And I don't think they're not going to go west, any further west than they already are at this point.
If they go west, I think that they would go west with more than two teams.
Yeah. I think Western expansion is 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think they know their targets out there as well.
Well,
I think it's pretty clear.
Hopefully it's Seattle, Vancouver, and either Edmonton or Calgary.
Denver, I think, would be the fourth one.
Yeah, Denver's great. They did really well in Denver. I don't think they're going to go to Denver in this round.
No, I agree with you. I think it's east of Minnesota is the likely option.
Yeah.
Chicago has the rink availability.
I mean, if they can make a deal for the Wolves rink, and that I actually don't know how much they really want to deal with that guy.
Well, I mean, the fact they haven't done a takeover game in Chicago is a little telling to me. So you kind of have to deal with either the Wirtz with United Center, or I forget the guy who owns the Wolves, who is he's a little tough. He's a little tough to deal with. So yeah, I kind of expect them to do something next year in Chicago, but I don't think it's happening yet. Don Levin?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him. Yeah, is Allstate owned by the Wolves?
Oh, good question.
No, it's actually owned by the Village of Rosemont, so they don't have to do a direct deal with Mr. Levin.
Oh, they might be all right then. That might work.
Yeah. So I think that's an option.
Certainly.
But the fact that they haven't done it yet strongly indicates to me that maybe they're not thinking about Chicago, and maybe they're worried about a repeat of what's happened in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago is an incredibly busy city with a lot of sports.
A lot of competition.
And a lot of competition, and it might be hard to differentiate oneself. If I was looking at Buffalo, I would think maybe you move the Sirens there. At least then they're still in New York State. Maybe. I don't think the Sirens are going to go to a smaller city like Albany, Rochester, or Syracuse. I think Buffalo is the only real target.
Fair enough.
My guess would be Quebec City and Detroit.
Yeah. I think it would be great to go to Quebec City. I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense.
The only other city that I can strongly see them looking at in Canada right now is Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
They packed the Scotiabank Center. I want to always call it the Metro Center because that's what it was when I was growing up before everything had a sponsor. And before all sponsors were Scotiabank. Scotiabank or Rogers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they sell quite well for the Mooseheads. They sold out really well for the rivalry series game. They're getting a women's soccer team, and they've sold a lot of tickets for that. So I think Halifax is a city that they might look at. They haven't done a takeover game there yet, probably because it's not an NHL-sized arena. But maybe that's a market you consider if you want a Canadian market. I don't think London's getting in. I think it's too small. Hamilton is another possibility. If you want a second team in the GTA, which, as we've discussed, is a thing you could absolutely do and sell.
Yeah, I believe that arena is under renovation right now.
Yeah, but I don't think we're going to see the new team start next season. I think it will be the season after.
No,
I think
I
they're going to
agree.
get a full season lead time.
I agree.
But I think Detroit has made a pretty clear case that it's the city best suited for women's hockey in the Eastern United States that doesn't already have a team.
Yeah.
And
Northeast.
I don't believe, yeah.
I just don't see him going to Raleigh.
Raleigh did surprisingly well, though, didn't it? Like,
did.
the 10,000 is pretty good.
It is.
And I could see it getting an expansion franchise down the road.
Do they have an appropriately sized rink in Raleigh?
Oy vey.
Or Charlotte?
Because
Because they're not going to...
Sport in Raleigh.
I don't think they're going to play in the Hurricanes rink.
No. Raleigh, North Carolina. Sorry, Raleigh, North Carolina. Sorry, Alex, just so you understand what we're talking about.
Don't be mean.
I'm not being mean. List of sports venues in North Carolina. Let's see. There's the Dorton Arena.
Tell me more.
Which is... it seats 5,000 for hockey.
Is that in Raleigh?
It is in Raleigh, on the grounds of the North Carolina State Fair.
Ooh.
It is 73 years old.
Those state fair rinks they are barns. Like real barns.
This thing looks massive based on the Wikipedia picture of it. Like,
I'm sitting here picturing like, so do you think they ever upgraded it with plexiglass?
I mean, I imagine they have by this point.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me laugh.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
What? Share with the class.
I just have to read what it says on Wikipedia here. Completed in 1952, the arena served as an inspiration to many architects and civil engineers. This led to a boom in lightweight construction in Europe, such as in multiple places in Germany, and, quote, a prominent symbol of the German-American alliance during the Cold War era, end quote. So basically a bunch of ex-Nazis stole it to do their architecting.
Okay. Oh, it's really interesting looking.
Yeah, no, it is. And the guy who designed it is Matthew Nowicki, who was Polish, and he worked on the United Nations headquarters. And yeah, he built a lot of really interesting buildings, but this one apparently got stolen by a bunch of ex-Nazis, most likely. That's fun.
When was this last renovated? This is
Wikipedia does not say.
This is arena. Looking at arenas on Wikipedia with the Neutral Zone Hotel.
Yep, that's what we do when you talk about where a PWHL fan. Yeah, so 5,000 for Raleigh seems pretty reasonable.
It does, assuming this is a viable venue. Who knows?
I bet you they go back to Raleigh next year, but I don't think it gets a franchise now. I think Detroit's. Even if you have to play at USA Hockey Arena and do 4,500, including standing, I think that you are in a much better situation financially if you do that than if you put a team somewhere that you're not going to have to play in a big arena, but you're not going to draw more. And if they can, they don't necessarily have to do 15 games at Little Caesars. Mm-hmm. They could get away with doing 3 or 4. especially if they're weekend games. Really try to get some fans out for that and get their attendance numbers up. I think that's probably your best bet.
Yeah. I'm just looking at pictures of Dorton Arena now. This is a really cool looking building.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, back when they allowed public money to be used on beautiful things.
Yeah. Apparently this is a National Historic Civil Engineering landmark.
Yeah.
Rock on.
That's really cool.
Maybe that means that it'll stick around and they'll keep renovating it.
It says fair officials have made significant changes to improve the acoustics of the building in recent years.
Concerts, very important revenue source.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe they could maybe that's a place they can play. Oh, there's some pictures of the inside on an old wrestling website but like wrestling fans, right?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. What an interesting arena.
It is very cool looking.
All right. So yeah, that's our guesses on what we've learned from the takeover tours. SJ.
Hello.
The last thing I had on the list was Tom Fitzgerald talks about cut-resistant equipment at the GM meeting.
Yes, this was... so do we want to... Let's talk about why he did that. So Tom Fitzgerald is not just the general manager and president of the New Jersey Devils. He is also a hockey dad. His son, Casey Fitzgerald, currently plays in the AHL for I totally forget the team. And Casey Fitzgerald...
The Bruins.
The Providence.
Sorry, no, he's Wolfpack.
Oh, right.
Hartford.
That's right. He's the captain of the AHL Hartford Wolfpack. I remember reading that today now. Thank you. And so apparently in December, he suffered a pretty nasty skate cut to just along the bottom edge of his chin. It was several inches long. And yeah, he was rushed to the hospital, needed a bunch of stitches. And apparently Fitzgerald has been using this as a bit of a rallying cry on his team and now at the general manager's meeting to try to convince players to wear cut-resistant clothing, including neck guards, wrist guards, and ankle socks, the cut-resistant socks. He reports that so far he has not been successful. Not a single New Jersey Devil player has started wearing the cut-resistant clothing. As a result of this, seems to be quite upset about it. But that's where he's at right now. Now, it is worth noting that in the AHL, they do require net guards, and Casey Fitzgerald was wearing a net guard when he suffered the skate cut. The skate cut him above the net guard.
It kind of caught him on the chin.
It caught him
like
just
right
below the chin. Yeah, The Athletic actually published a really gruesome photo of the cut after it had been stitched up. Like absolutely covered in blood. It was gross. They do helpfully warn you about that picture at the top of the article. So if you do choose to go look at it, it's a fairly gruesome picture of a lot of stitches and a lot of blood. But yeah, players have just generally been very resistant to wearing neck guards in particular. I'm not sure what the take-up is on the socks and wrist guards. Not good enough, IMO. Personally, I think it's worth noting that the WHL, the CHL, also requires net guards, but one of the Everett Silvertips players suffered a shredded Achilles tendon. Just recently, Carter Bear, who is draft eligible this year and most likely will go top 15, even though his season is now over because his Achilles tendon was shredded by a skate cut. There was no reporting that I saw on whether he was wearing cut-resistant socks, but I cannot imagine that he was, considering that it shredded his Achilles, and that is exactly the kind of injury that the cut-resistant socks are intended to prevent. So just really, really unfortunate, and also like, wear your cut-resistant clothing. I don't know what to tell these guys. The NHL had to mandate helmets before players were willing to wear them. They had to mandate visors before players were willing to wear them. I think NHL players would go out there stark naked and play hockey if they were allowed to do so, because wearing pads at all, they feel, would just be such a hindrance. Clothing, who needs that? And it just baffles me every single day that these guys are so stubborn about these kinds of life-saving equipment.
So I think you're probably a little wrong on what would happen if they got rid of all requirements.
I'm being hyperbolic.
You're being you're doing a hyperbole. I know. But I think it's interesting to look at the last major safety innovations that were forced on players through a rule change. So the big one, obviously, was the mandatory requirement of helmets. But what's really interesting is that by 1979, when players were when helmets were grandfathered in, so players entering the league had to wear helmets, 70% of players were already wearing a helmet. They had seen what had happened to Bill Masterton and to many of their own fellows over the years, and 70% of players were wearing helmets. When the NHL required visors for new players, 60% of players were already wearing visors.
Can you name the one player who still doesn't wear a visor?
Marc-Edouard Vlasic.
Okay, there's more than one then.
I don't know. I just
Jamie Benn.
Old guy.
Jamie Benn still doesn't wear a visor. He's
cool.
Yeah.
Right now, according to the Athletic article, only 60 guys in the league are wearing neck protection.
Yeah, 60. Not 60%. 60.
So 60 of about 800.
Yeah.
So that's 7.5%.
Yeah.
At best.
And guys who are called up from the AHL don't oftentimes take the neck guards. Like, they don't bring their neck guards with them. They don't wear them in the NHL.
Yep.
Even though they're totally used to wearing them.
So my feeling is, it's not just that players are stubborn. A lot of players were willing to make the adaptation in previous years. Something has changed. Either the value of this particular safety piece is not getting through to the vast majority of the players, or the quality of it is such they legitimately do feel like they are being slowed down or have their game altered. Or maybe it's just that people don't react to facts the same way they used to. And we know that the NHL, like you said earlier, the players can be kind of dumb. So how much of this is players who simply do not want to believe that these are life-saving implements?
I think that many of them they just don't think that it could ever possibly happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, they see skate cuts all the time. There's also an element of, like, they still don't wear face cages, even though at least a handful of players, like 5+ players every year, get hit in the face with a puck and suffer an injury severe enough for them to miss many games. Like, broken jaws, shattered teeth, like, just broken noses, broken cheekbones, like severe injuries that keep them out for months at a time. And yet we don't wear face cages in the NHL.
I don't think face cages are ever coming to the NHL.
They just loved getting dental work and breaking their jaws with pucks.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, and I'm not a hockey player myself, so I can't speak for it, but I think there is something there that makes it a challenge for them.
It's some kind of, and like I read an article the other day saying that guys so if you have a facial injury and you want to play, you're required to wear like either a fishbowl or a cage. And I read an article, I think it was in The Athletic the other day, that stated that guys who are wearing the fishbowl routinely get mocked during games for wearing them, even though they're wearing them because they have an injury. And they always take them off basically as soon as they possibly can. So like there's a real like cultural element to like that kind of, there's this internal reinforcement that only, wusses wear face protection or something. And I think there is some of that as well around the neck protection. I cannot imagine why that would exist for like the wrist, the sleeves, and the socks, because you can't tell if someone is wearing those externally. But there is a real cultural internalized element to that is pretty concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I get that it's their choice to an extent. And I think for me, the difference between a cage and a visor is you're probably not going to have your career permanently ended if somebody hits you in the face, but you could if it hits you square between the eyes, or you could lose your vision. A helmet straight up kill you. Hockey players have died on the ice. Noticeably, Masterson.
Hockey players have died on the ice from skate cuts to the neck.
And that's what I was going to say.
And they have had their careers ruined from skate cuts to the legs.
Yep, or the wrists.
And the wrists. Yep. Gabe Landeskog took a skate cut to the leg. That's why he's not playing today. Hasn't played for 3 years. I think Evander Kane was the most recent player I can think of who took a nasty skate cut to the wrist. Pat Maroon basically skated over his wrist while he was lying on the ice. It was horrific. Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, I say if it's something that's going to impact their quality of life, okay, you have a choice. But if something that's going to impact their life, I think it shouldn't be a choice. So I'm all on board. Like, I can understand the difference between a cage and not a cage. But yeah, I really don't want to see another person get Richard Zednicked on the ice.
I don't know who that is.
He was a guy who got his throat cut by a skate in a hockey game.
Yeah.
Playing for the Caps at the time. And it was real bad. He was real bad.
Yeah.
So.
Hello, John here. As the resident Florida Panthers fan of this podcast, I feel the need to make a correction to that last statement. Richard Zednick was in fact playing for the Florida Panthers at the time of his horrific neck injury in a road game at the Buffalo Sabres. It was his first of 2 seasons in Florida, at the conclusion of which he left for the KHL. Neutral Zone Hotel regrets the error.
I think there is an argument over just like the technology element of it. Some of them are quite uncomfortable. There are fit problems, et cetera, et cetera. But as soon as they say, hey, everybody has to wear one of these, like even now the technology is leaping forward because there is that demand and because there is real competition between the CCMs and the Bowers and what's Oshie's company, War Road or something. That there's real competition in the supply space to make these items comfortable and fit well and work correctly and just like be better. So yeah, demand
minimize the impact.
Yep.
to the player's game.
Yep, exactly.
That was an interesting conversation. I just wanted to get the facts about how so many less players are using this stuff than helmets and visors before.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Something feels like it's changed the culture. So anyway, we didn't take a break today, and I want to apologize to John, who wants us to take a break, and we didn't do our call to action, even though I slipped a little Discord thing in earlier. But I don't think we have much more we want to talk about today, do we, SJ?
No, let's wrap up.
All right. I want to thank everybody for spending some time with us today and let you know you've been listening to the Neutral Zone Hotel, which is written, hosted, and produced by us, the Neutral Zone Hotel crew. You can find out more at neutralzonehotel.com. Join our Discord at neutralzonehotel.com/Discord. We're on Instagram, Bluesky, and YouTube at Neutral Zone Hotel. Our email is feedback@neutralzonehotel.com. As always, we want to thank our friend Emily Mowbray for designing our superb logo. And if you're listening on your podcast platform of choice, give us 5 stars or a thumbs up or smash the like button, whatever it is works for you. Folks, hopefully you check in with us next week. We hope you've enjoyed your stay, and we'll talk to you very soon.